and I think that's going to be very important for the future. But right now, when we don't know when games are going to be played, I think it can be kind of tough to get motivated. And we've seen some coaches say that doesn't matter. You guys should be working it anyway. And we've seen other coaches who are kind of like, let's just wait and see, rest up right now.
Fantastic. And in regards to, the players, I don't know if there's as much transferring. Obviously players are always transferring. But as far as any big names, have you heard of any?
I'm trying to think. So in terms of big names, before this, St. Bernard took in a decent amount of kids with the new Narbonne staff over there. So they got a defensive back from Westlake. They have a few big name guys, but I think overall right now it's kind of wait and see. And I talked to the Southern Section Commissioner Rob Wygott today about if they will make the transfer rules a little bit more lenient because of the coronavirus situation. And he said that the state is in talks about that because, for example, say you're a kid who's going to a private school and because of the virus, your parents lose their job and they're unable to pay for the tuition at the private school. Should the kid be punished for switching schools when the parents lost their job and they just can't afford the tuition anymore? And the obvious answer is no. So if nothing changes, you don't change your residence and you go to a different school, you'd have to sit out. So they're looking at potentially a coronavirus rule for transfers where if your parents lost your job and you have to switch schools because of the virus, because of effects of the virus, then you won't face a punishment. So I think once we get a date for when stuff starts, we'll see more transfers pick up. But in terms of the last couple of months, I haven't seen anything at all about kids switching schools just because there's so much uncertainty.
I'm just curious, would that open up a can of worms? How do you actually prove that, the virus caused you to actually transfer?
That is a great question, and I'm not sure. I imagine it would be similar to maybe government unemployment. If you can prove that you're on unemployment, that might be the thing that gets you cleared. But that absolutely opens up a can of worms because, you could just say, yeah, my kid's switching schools because of the virus, and how can you back that up? My best guess would be the unemployment benefits, and you can prove that. But that's a great question because you're right. Who the heck can prove that? That seems like kind of an easy cop-out if you want to switch schools. So I don't have a great answer for that, but unemployment would be my guess.
But yeah, man, so you guys have been talking a lot about Narbonne and 4 years ago I was a varsity coach with Birmingham and, they just won the city section. And at the time, when I was with Rose and them, we were always kind of looking to this year. It was always kind of in the plan, we want to be competitive and make the playoffs. But, 3-4 years, we're trying to win a city title. And so I'm just curious, with all the stuff that happened with Narbonne, does that take away from what Birmingham accomplished last season? Does that come with an asterisk?
I don't think it comes with an asterisk, but say Narbonne was punished after the playoffs, then there wouldn't have been a champion because it would have been vacated in all likelihood because if Narbonne was in the playoffs, I think we all know they would have won. So I don't want to put an asterisk on it, but I think most people understand that if Narbonne wasn't punished, they would have won just because that's kind of the way it goes because that team is so talented and it's so loaded. But the fact is they were punished and they were ineligible for the playoffs. That was determined by the section. So Birmingham, they went up against everyone else, and they were the next best team. So in my opinion, it's absolutely not tainted in any way or anything. The powers that be made a decision, and Birmingham went on to win. So I look at them as the true champions. But, of course, on the flip side, if Narbonne had played, would they have won? Yeah. But, they kind of, if you believe that what they got was deserved, they got what was coming to them. And because of that, they're out for a reason. And Birmingham was the next best team. So they absolutely deserve it. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword, the answer there. But, in my opinion, no asterisk. I think they deserved it. They didn't break any rules. It was determined that Narbonne broke some rules. So if you do that, you're going to be out. They're out. and Birmingham took it, so they're the champions.
And as far as that, has Birmingham gotten that trophy yet? Because I know there was some controversy with Narbonne and trophies.
Yeah, so the section, the trophy from Narbonne was never given back to them, and I'm still not sure.
Those guys hate Narbonne. All of them.
Plus the soccer team.
They hate Narbonne so much.
The soccer team from the year before didn't get their trophy. I'm
still not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm still not sure if the original trophy was returned, but they did get a new trophy, and I think a couple months ago they got that, so that was funny. But yeah, we called it Trophy Gate. That was pretty funny. The section had no idea where it was.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, we don't know where it is, and we're not going to look for it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at that season's done, but all the athletes and all the sports that didn't even get to a chance, like we didn't really get to see a lot of track and field. How have those coaches and those athletes kind of handled this time period and how schools recruiting them? Have you heard anything regarding that?
Well, right now, in terms of baseball recruiting, you got to feel bad for the uncommitted seniors because, and in any sport, you got to feel bad for the uncommitted spring sports seniors because this was their last chance. Even though it is very late in the game, you still see kids have great senior years, even in the spring, and then they latch on to a school recruits them. Maybe something happens with a recruiting class at the school, and all of a sudden they have an opening, and then you see a kid who has a great senior year, and then boom, they're on that college roster the next year because of that. So you feel awful for people in that situation. I think everything's on hold in terms of spring recruiting. If you weren't committed before, there's a really good chance you aren't going to be committed now unless the coaches give you a green light. Hey, look, we really like you enough. If you still want to commit, you can. Because a lot of seniors who are uncommitted are having to prove it that senior season, and they weren't able to do that. So, I mean, the word that comes to mind, obviously, is disappointment. I'm sure coaches, players, they're terribly disappointed. And I'm sure some are angry, too. And they're not angry at any particular person. It's just a really frustrating situation. Baseball, we don't have the championships here for the first time since World War II, I believe. So it took a pandemic and then before that a war for this not to happen. So it's really unprecedented. And I think frustration is a feeling, anger is a feeling, sadness is a feeling. It's an awful time for some of these kids. And I'm not sure if they're going to go the junior college route, if they're going to go the post-grad route, play a year at prep school for the kids who really think they have college chances and can go D1. I'm not sure what route they'll go, but absolutely those kids got a raw deal compared to people in the past because, like I said just a couple seconds ago, if you're a senior, you're uncommitted, you got to prove it during that final year, and these kids never got that chance. So they got a totally raw deal, and I really do feel for them.
And what about you, Connor? I've had you on a panel before and stuff like that, and I've been on a couple panels, and a lot of people are asking me, what I think sports is going to be like after all this. But commissioners and presidents can't figure it out. What do we know? But I'm just curious. How are you dealing with all the uncertainty around sports that's going on, and how do you foresee yourself getting better once we're all done with this? Like, how do you think this is going to change you as a reporter and journalist?
That's a great question. Right now at Scorebook Live, we're doing a lot of lists, like a lot of here are the 10 best outfielders in the LA City section, that kind of thing, just to try to promote some of the kids who didn't get the chance to play that spring season. And we did who's the best 21st century high school basketball player from LA County, stuff like that.
That's great.
We're putting out, we're talking to people, putting out podcasts. So I don't want to say that content is unlimited, but that content we hope can keep us going until games are able to be played. And I wish I had a better answer because I don't really know how it's going to be changed because in my, the best case scenario is time goes by and then we have games, people are allowed in the stands and the games go on and the virus is behind us. But you hear so much about, there's going to be a second wave in the fall, and we might have to social distance in the stands, or we might not even have fans in the stands. So how it's going to affect me is I don't really know, and I wish I could answer that. But I know this: when games start up, I'll be covering them, and if I'm allowed to be there, and hopefully I'll be able to interview people afterwards. I think that we will ultimately get through this, and you want to be optimistic. And like I said earlier, I talked to the Southern Section Commissioner, and he is optimistic. Even in a worst-case scenario, he hopes that we could play football in January if it needs to come to that, if we need more time, and then abbreviate every other season. So it could change my job in the sense that football is quicker and basketball is quicker than baseball is quicker. But overall, I think I don't know, anything as much as anyone else doesn't know anything. I don't even know if the governors know that much right now. And I think what we need, obviously, the best case scenario would be if we could get mass testing, and then if you're good, go. If you're not, stay home, and then eventually you'll get better. And then if you can test negative, then you can go and play and be out in the world. So I think overall, when this all picks back up, I'll cover it like I have in the past, and we'll go from there. But I think the world will certainly be different, and we'll adapt. I'll adapt. I'm sure you guys will adapt, and we'll do the best jobs we can in this new, different post-coronavirus world. That's kind of how I see it right now. But who really knows what the future looks like?
Yeah, for
Indeed. Last question for me. Have the coaches kind of, now that I guess you could say they have downtime, have they started updating more of their stuff onto Scorebook Live? Or they just have they just said forget it, like they kind of did with Max Preps?
I'm sure you saw Eric's tweet today about Scorebook Live. Yeah, so we took some heat today for sure. And let me just say this about Scorebook: it was always going to be tough in that first year to get people to switch from Max Preps, and people have complaints, and I totally understand. But the good news about this stoppage is that it's going to allow our engineers and our web designers and our people who operate on the back end of the site to correct the issues and to get things going and get them going well by the time sports pick back up. And we always kind of banked on year one being a struggle. And as you saw with some tweets today, people voiced their feelings, and I understand. I get it. It's tough to change, and when the product isn't up to where it needs to be, I understand the complaints. I understand people getting frustrated. Our hope and our goal, and we're very confident about it, is that this downtime, we will get up to speed. We will change our product, and it will be able to compete with Max Prep successfully, and people will input stats, rosters, schedules, all that good stuff on our back end, and then we'll go from there, because it's going to allow our engineers to pick up a lot of stuff with the site that needs to be picked up and improved. And so, again, this isn't a very good time for anyone, but we're looking at it as a bright spot for us because it'll allow us to catch up and make some changes that we really need.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Connor.
Before we let you go, why don't you go ahead and let people know where they can find you?
Sure. I'm C_Morissette on Twitter, and our website at Scorebook Live. It's scorebooklive.com/California. You can see all of our breaking news articles, podcasts, lists. It's the great spot for high school sports in Southern California, and I work with a guy named Lance Smith and Bodie Da Silva, who's down in San Diego, and we cover the whole region of Southern California at scorebooklive.com/California.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you, Connor. Great stuff, man. Keep up the good work, and stay well and healthy.
Avoid those hornets too.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Anytime you'd like to have me on, I love doing this. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Take care.
Take care.
That was Connor Morissette, man. Always a great person just a great person, just a great person to talk to, but also a great interview, and also a great reporter. He gave you some great information and insight on your very specific questions, which is awesome. So shout out to him, man.
Definitely. It's like high school. People don't realize like high school sports is like its own ecosystem. Like it's like its own. I think it was like if you could put it up